Hello everyone and welcome to Ohio Nicole Creates. This week I would like to share with you my process for creating the Sirens palette. The Sirens palette was actually a birthday gift that I created for niece number 3. Niece number 3 is very much into sirens and things of the sea. So in order to make her a special birthday gift, I wanted to create a palette that spoke to these interests and also to her favorite colors. And in order to make this palette, I used various pigments and sustainably sourced mica powders in order to create a set of shimmer colors. I went through the process in a similar way to the one described in my earlier video on watercolor binding, and I'll link that in the description box below. But basically I used a binder made of gum arabic, honey, oxgall, and cloves, and hand mold each of the pigments and each of the colors to create various shades of watercolor. All of the colors mixed in this palette are made specifically for my niece. So the colors are not those that you would find elsewhere because they were formulated and mixed for her, which I think was a really fun touch to the palette overall. It did take a little bit of time to create all of these paints, and I made a few each week throughout the last few months, and many of the videos are also uploaded to TikTok if you're interested in watching them there. I did want to feature all of the colors and the names for the colors that I used. It was very much a family effort to come up with all of these various sea-inspired names like kelp, seaweed, angelfish, sunset, and my friend's daughter Micah actually helped. So Micah, if you were watching this video, thank you so much for all of your help with the names for these colors. It was awesome. And so I swatched out all of these colors because I wanted to make sure I had a great variety and that I gave her something in which she could create her own world for these sirens to exist in. And I was quite pleased that at the end of the day we had come up with 26 colors in all, which I think is a really nice size palette. In order to prepare the palette itself, I swatched all of the colors on labels and then hand wrapped each of the palettes in various candy wrappers to give the palette a nice finished look. I found that this extra step was just a tiny bit tedious, but it really does enhance the wow factor of the palette and help to give it a nice finished and professional look. And one of my nieces actually told me that it was a bit like opening little presents when they receive their palettes. So I'm really happy to have taken the time to do these extra steps to make the palette that much more special. I found that while I was creating this palette and while I was mixing these paints, it was really fun to research the idea of sirens, because my niece was interested in sirens rather than mermaids, which my younger daughter is enthralled by. I wanted to really think on that distinction and what is the difference between a siren and the mermaid that we have in popular culture. And so I found that in world mythology, really since we've been telling myths, there have been mermaid or siren-like creatures in all of our world culture myths, which is really neat to think about how these images come up again and again in our culture. One of the oldest versions that I found was actually from Syria, and it was about a beautiful goddess who wanted to become a fish. So she jumped into the ocean, but the other gods felt that she was so beautiful that they only allowed the bottom half of her to become a fish, so she would retain that beauty on the top half. And I thought that was such an interesting metaphor for kind of this beauty and this desire of what it is that we really want to be. So as I was mixing and researching, I was just reading these various myths and learning more about what sirens were. Another interesting version of the mermaid is Mamiwata, who comes from Africa. And this version is a little bit closer to what we understand as sirens, because she is beautiful, she's nurturing, but she also tempts and devours men, which is, I think, the kind of popular conception of siren that we have now. So as I was putting together this collection, I was kind of thinking on these, and also our most famous version of sirens, which comes from the Odyssey. And in the Odyssey, Odysseus, the hero, knows that he has to sail through this area where there are sirens, and that if he listens to their song, he will crash his ship, because that's what they will command him to do. Their songs are so beautiful. So he ties himself to the mast of his ship and commands that his men stuff their ears with wax and other materials so that they don't hear the sirens. And there's this really beautiful verse within the longer work of the Odyssey. And they're talking about what the sound was like. Thus the sweet charmers warbled over the main. My soul takes wing to meet the heavenly strain. I give the sign and struggle to be free. Swift row my mates and shoot along the sea. New chains they add, and raptured urge the way, till dying off the distant sounds decay. Then scuttling swiftly from dangerous ground, the deafened ear unlocked, the chains abound. And I just really love this idea of the Song of the Sirens making new chains. So as I was completing this palette, I wrote a description for my niece that just tells the original siren story from mythology that we might be most familiar with here in the Western world. So the description reads, "Sirens were once feathered creatures with songs sweet and tempting. Hera, the queen of the gods, was a jealous queen and challenged the sirens to a contest singing against the great muses. The sirens lost the competition, even though their melodies were beautiful. Their feathers fell from their bodies as punishment. No longer able to fly, the sirens plummeted into the ocean. The muses collected the feathers the sirens shed and made crowns for their own hair to taunt them. It was then the sirens became souls of the sea. They vowed to gain revenge, captivating humans with their sweet songs. And what a fate that is, to be born of the sky and trapped in the sea." To finish up the palette, I wanted to give a kind of old world or antiqued feel. So I wrapped the palette with parchment paper and twine, and sealed with a wax seal of shimmer waxes that features a siren image, just to kind of finish off the palette and give it that otherworldly feel. I also created a birthday card from the paints for my niece, and here is the finished palette with the wrapped paints, and also just one more view of all of those beautiful colors. My niece made a birthday card for my daughter with the paints, which I thought was awesome. Thank you everyone for watching and being with us each week, and I look forward to bringing you more videos soon.